used recording microphone. I call it the Billie
This
Eilish.
one or the
SM7.
Really?
Yeah. That's a Billie Eilish mic.
Oh,
She used to record.
And that was so good. When I read the reviews, honestly, I was like, damn, I need to get at least one for myself.
It just works. And it's they do have 2 different foam.
Okay, is it like for the air stuff? And
so yeah, one of them feels more like podcasting, like radio, and the other one calling for singing. So I think it's for
okay. Well, you got the SM7B. Okay, yeah, that's the one I got.
SM7B, and I also have the Shure SM58.
Oh, okay.
Which is the live one. That's more like the
one that I don't. Yeah. Like
that's one they use live. So like,
is that what you guys were using at your show with Tom Schumacher? Ah, but how does it not pick up feedback from all the speakers and everything?
This part. Yeah, that's why, and that's
the whole purpose of it. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, because it's meant to be used in the live aspect. Yeah, so you have guitars and bass, so it's just the proximity.
Oh, so you got to be up close to use it.
Yeah, as long as you're not covering the cone. Yeah, just what a lot of people do.
Yeah, I always see that.
Yeah, I think they gravitate to man. Don't do that.
Okay. Well, I mean, we're already recording anyway, so
let's just start nerding.
Yeah. So I always like to do that with people whenever they come on the podcast. They don't even know we're recording.
Throw them off.
Yeah. Basically. But no.
I get it.
Basically, just go ahead and introduce yourself first of all.
I don't need to look over here, right?
No, we're just talking. We're just
so my name is Chris Miranda. I am from Arizona, specifically Tucson, Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in Arizona, but I was also raised in Mexico. So where I'm from is about an hour away from Mexico.
Okay.
And that's where most of my family is. But I live in LA now. I've been here for the past 4 or 5 years or so.
Okay, you've been here. So wait, you were living in Mexico before this?
So I've been in Arizona.
In Arizona, right.
But I lived in Mexico when I was a child and a teenager. So I was what they call border child. So I used to go back and forth.
Oh.
Raised in Arizona, was there like for 3 years, went back to Mexico with my mom, hung out for like 3 or 4 years, came back for school, went back again to do middle school, I think, like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So I got to be in school over there. And then my mom's like, all right, you're about to start high school. Time to go back. So then I came back again. So I was living with my aunt, my dad.
Yeah. How was that for you?
I think I felt very lucky because someone cared enough to bring me in their home.
Yeah.
It was my family and we all grew up together and we all lived together at one point.
Yeah.
But I didn't look at it as a bad thing. I didn't realize what was happening. Yeah. I knew it was just like, just do whatever they're telling you.
Yeah.
I wasn't a problem child. I was very much that, I guess, I kept to myself a lot.
Okay.
But I tried to, how can I say, look at the positive side. It's like, all right.
Yeah, optimistic. Yeah.
I'm like, it was cool to be a Mexican because of the culture, the food, the school, the music. Since we're talking about music and all that, it's great. But coming to US was different because you have AC in the classrooms. You know, you have different amenities that you don't get in other schools in other countries.
Yeah.
Like music school, we don't have music school in Mexico. We had
really?
Yeah, you wanted to do music. When I was in middle school, you had to join the drum line, which is. And then even when I joined that, we only had like 2 meetings, and then they're like, oh yeah, we're not going to do that anymore.
Okay.
So it was that kind of thing that it's structured, but it's not really structured because you don't have those resources and that money to go into extracurricular activities.
I see. It was almost like a luxury to have that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, but I love Arizona and I love the desert. So where I'm from specifically, it's well known for being the Sonoran Desert.
Yeah.
And the Sonoran Desert runs from Arizona all the way to Mexico. Sonora, Mexico, which is a state below Arizona.
Oh.
And the whole Sonoran Desert, that's where you see the saguaros and the cactuses.
Yeah.
So as far as I know, my family's been in that land for at least 3 or 4 generations.
Okay.
And in Arizona, Mexico.
Yeah.
So I love it. But I'm in LA now and the weather here, oh my God.
Can't beat it anymore, huh?
I can't beat it.
So, I mean, like, speaking of your early childhood, you mentioned music, and then how early on were you kind of being exposed to music and just any genre or any background?
As far as I can remember,
yeah.
That's going to sound very Mexican of me, but I think it's since you're born, because you go to quinceañeras, you go to weddings, you go to all these parties that there's always music.
Yeah.
For what I remember was cumbia. It's always been cumbia,
okay.
right? And so my mom loves cumbia and she's always used to play whenever she had a chance. My dad liked more of the called regional music, just the corridos, right? With accordion and 12-string guitar and all that. So I remember that very early. I can't tell you which songs at the time because I was a kid, but as I grew older, I realized that it's the same songs that have been played every single party you go to. So you memorize them, right? Yeah, understand, oh yeah, it's this song. But that was one of them. The other that I remember was, so when I was living in Mexico, I don't know if a lot of people had this experience living in other countries and then being in the US. You're a little bit behind, not completely behind, but we were listening to disco in the 90s. I remember that. This was still pretty big.
Okay.
You would go to like the ice cream shop and they're playing disco.
Okay.
Bee Gees, they're playing Sister Sledge and all that, you know? So I remember that too, just hearing disco when I was probably like 7 or 8 years old. I was born in 91, so I was like born in 97, 98.
Yeah.
I remember hearing disco and I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. What is this? And then my uncles, they would tell us stories that, oh yeah, that's what we would dance to. That's the music that they were dancing to in Mexico when they were young.
Yeah.
In the 70s and 80s. So I felt like we were behind, but in all reality, they were not behind. They were ahead because they had been listening to in the time.
Yeah.
Now it's the 90s and it's just part of the culture now.
Yeah.
So I think me being born in that whole border aspect of Arizona and Mexico, I got to get both things. I got the whole Mexico side, mariachi, corridos, cumbia, but I also got the US side and the full
disco and
classic rock. A lot of classic rock, I remember. But I remember the thing that I remember the most about music, it's always when I was living in Mexico, I remember it was the first time we had cable, right?
Okay.
Cable just came into my life.
Yeah.
It was 99 channels, I remember, right? And out of those 99 channels, there's about 4 music channels, but 2 of them specifically, one of them was MTV Latino, right?
Okay.
So they're playing System of a Down, Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah.
But they're also playing Maná and Caifanes and all these Spanish and Mexican and Latin American bands, right?
Yeah.
So you're getting both of them, MTV Unplugged, all that, right?
Yeah.
You get in English and Spanish. But there's another channel that I remember that was called Telehit.
Okay.
This was where I found electronic music the first time. That's it used to be a channel, I think it was from Europe. I don't know specifically where in Europe, but I remember it was from Europe because they used to broadcast live shows from the Ministry of Sound.
They would all where?
Ministry of Sound.
Oh, okay.
So the big, like,
Yeah.
it's a label, but it's also a club.
Yeah.
So they would do live broadcasts and you would be able to see it like at, I think sometimes it was like 5 a.m. because of the time difference. So I remember just waking up sometimes and it's like, what's right there?
Yeah.
And you just see these raves. You see the full rave. And I remember, I'm like, damn, that's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so far out.
Yeah.
Anything that I know, that doesn't exist where I live. So I remember seeing that and seeing the big, like, I remember they did like the Tiesto, the Dodger for Strings. It was that time, the Traffic and all that cool stuff with him and Paul Oakenfold and all that. But I didn't really get it.
Yeah.
I got it, but I didn't really get it because in my brain was, I'm never going to see this. This is so far out from my world. Like, I'm so used to the same thing that I hear.
Yeah.
So I let it go for a while. I remember seeing it, but didn't end up...
For you, there was like no chance of ever getting to experience that.
Yeah, for me in my mind, I'm like, why get so deep into this when you have never... I didn't even know they had CDJs or turntables. You couldn't even see that really. It was mainly just flashing lights, DJ.
Yeah.
That's when I think the rise of the DJ was becoming slowly, like they're becoming more of an Olympics, right? Yeah. All those things. So I gravitated towards rock. It's just rock. I'm like, I see my uncle has a guitar, you know, that my friend has a drum set. So it was part of that. And that's how I came into, I think, the music world in my aspect.
Yeah.
Rock. So it was a little bit of everything.
1 sec, but sorry. I forgot to set up one thing before we continue. You were kind of getting best of both worlds.
Yeah. So, yeah. We were talking about music.
Yeah, your background.
Oh, yeah. But if you want to know how I got making music or doing music. So
did you make music before, like you...
I tried to.
This is when you picked up the bass guitar or something?
No, before that. So when I was living in Mexico, I wanted to play. My family wanted me to learn guitar.
Yeah.
Because I had a cousin that played guitar and my uncles played guitar, so it would have been easier to learn.
Yeah.
There's really no piano lessons over there, but so my dad bought me a guitar, right? He bought me like an acoustic guitar. I remember the acoustic guitar because it was there's a hometown, not a hometown, there's a town in Mexico where my family's from. Near that town, that's where they make guitars by hand. The whole town just makes.
Really?
Yeah. So the state is called Michoacan.
Yeah.
And the town is called Paracho.
Okay.
Right? So in that little town, I think, if you've seen the movie Once Upon a Time in Mexico,
I don't think I have,
if you guys have seen it, I think in one of the first scenes, there's a little town and there's a church and they're building guitars and there's like a gunfight. So I think it was basically inspired by that town.
Yeah.
Right? So I remember getting that guitar, and I think I was telling you earlier, just the fretboard didn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like in
Didn't translate,
this string, I'm like, you start G, E, A, B, whatever it is. And I tried it, nothing. And I'm like, damn, I wasn't meant to do this.
Yeah.
And then I came back to the US. And when I think when I came back, it was my last year in middle school, which would have been 8th grade. And I found out that there was band. I didn't know this. So I went to the band teacher and I'm like, hey, I want to play. He's like, what do you want to play? I'm like, trumpet. He's like, okay.
Okay.
So he's like, all right, go and rent your trumpet. And rented the trumpet. I think like 2 classes in, he realized he had like 15 trumpet players. And he's like, this guy just came in. These guys have like 3 years on him.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, do you want to play the baritone? I'm like, the
baritone? Is that?
No, that's a trombone.
Okay.
But this is like a tuba, but smaller. So
Okay.
Kind of like it just has the horn pointing up.
So it doesn't wrap around you.
You know, exactly. It's just right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have the 3 buttons too.
Okay.
The horn just goes up.
Yeah.
And it's basically a bass instrument. So that's when I started falling in love with bass and understanding that. So you have harmony and you have melody, but you also have the bass and you have the lower frequencies in the music. So I did baritone, and then when I was in high school, I did 1 year of marching band. Just memorized the songs. So I learned a little bit of song reading, sight reading, but and I did it, and I realized when I was in high school, I'm like, I'm not gonna get a scholarship. You know, I had friends in the bands that were really good, and even they were like, yeah, I'm not gonna get a scholarship. So I realized very fast, why do I want to spend more time in this if it's not bringing me that much joy, right?
No, it's pretty mature for someone that young, honestly, to
So
realize.
I'm gonna do this, and I remember just letting it go. But I've always just listened to music. I think at that time I was listening to like metalcore and like hardcore metal. A lot of
You were listening to that while in music, or you just kind of jumped to it? It's like,
no, at the same time. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, at the same time, I was listening to a lot of metal and a lot of not classic rock at the time. It was barely coming into my world, but it was a lot of hip hop, of course.
Okay.
Because I grew up in the West Coast. So and then from there, what I remember the most was transitioning into the bass guitar. So I wanted to learn. I still wanted to play, but what do I want to do? So I traded my iPod Touch at the time, and I got a bass guitar.
Wait, you
had an iPod Touch. Yeah.
You traded that for a bass guitar?
Yeah,
that's dope.
I got an iPod Touch, and I had a cousin that had a bass that he never played. And it was a beautiful bass, I remember. So he traded me, and I started playing, and I was mediocre, not really good at all. But I was really eager. I really wanted to be in a band. I was like, I want to go and play in the what do they call it, the Battle of Bands and all that. Because all my friends were playing in metal bands. And I tried to play in my friend's band, but I was just not good at all. So I wasn't really practicing. I didn't understand the concept of putting your 10,000 hours. You were just skilled and you're born with it, right?
Born with it, yeah.
And I didn't realize you had to work on it. So the bass has always been a lifetime practice. I still practice it. I'm okay. But from there, when I went to college, that's when everything completely flipped for me in music. When I was in college, someone gave me a cracked software. Someone gave me a software. And I remember having my MacBook Pro at the time. I just bought it, used MacBook Pro. And someone's like, dude, it's like, do you have this program. I'm not gonna say the program because
Yeah.
it doesn't matter, but you probably know which one it is.
I have an idea.
I mean, you're cracked.
Yeah.
You're like, it's that one.
Yep.
So I got it, and I remember being like, oh my god, you can do everything
Yeah.
on this computer and on this software. And for like a year or so or 2 years, I used it, but nothing good, nothing good. And then I remember, I don't know if it was a virus or whatever it was. I think it was my brother, but my computer just went to crap. So I had to reboot it. I lost the program. I lost connection with that guy. So I couldn't get that version anymore.
Yeah.
So I let it go. At the time, I was like, okay, I need to focus on school.
Yeah. So what were you making when you had that?
I was just trying to put anything together. I didn't understand. Like I said, I knew electronic music very little, but I didn't really understand the concept of arrangement. Had no basis of anything. Even though I love music and I listen to all of this, I didn't understand that
the fundamental
songwriting. The arranging, the songwriting. Like, hey, sit down and what do you want to tell?
Yeah.
For me, it's just mash buttons, put it on. Does it work? No. Mute it? No. So like I said, it was not that great.
Yeah.
But it helped me understand that everything's software, especially with music. It's all just learning it. And so you just need to know where the file button is at, how to load a sample, or where the keyboard, the piano roll. So I learned that, which made me feel really good. And then while all that was happening, I was just consuming music. Bunch of music, and in college that's when classic rock came to mind.
Yeah. So was this when we had a lot of CDs around, or are we getting?
I've had CDs my whole life. So, So I still collect CDs, records now, but at the time, CDs, that's from like the 90s, So I was doing that. And I remember having CDs, but the other thing was MP3 players. So I had like very inexpensive MP3 players with it's like 300 megabytes, I think.
Yeah.
You had like 50, 60 songs. And it was the best, right? That's awesome. So remember that, the iPod Touch, as I said before.
Yeah.
Or the iPod Classic. So it was more of the...
just as that age of like that portable music was getting into the...
And I think a lot of it was also going to my friends and be like, what music do you have? And he would load it. So then I would go somewhere else and get more music. So I would have an iPod with... It was my music, but it was more like everyone's music.
Yeah, community music.
I think that's the part of the DJ selector thing, just finding other people's music. And then eventually, once I got my computer, I was able to get all that music. I'm like, I don't want this.
Yeah.
I don't listen to this guy. I don't listen to this guy. I just collect mine. But YouTube was the other big thing. YouTube has been around for so long. So I would go on YouTube, watch music videos. Just one of my favorite things. That was a big thing. What else? Radio was still a thing, but where I used to live, it was more like rock. It was just like Third Eye Blind and System of a Down and all that. And there's nothing else. There's no other electronic music. There's hip hop. I remember there's a lot.
Okay, so it was very little exposure. Yeah.
For me, it was more going to shows. I would go to a lot of rock shows.
Oh, okay.
I used to go to theater, and there was it's called the Rialto Theater back in my hometown in Tucson, Arizona. We would go and you'd pay $10 to $15, and metalcore bands would come. You would go to the Rock, which was a local venue that still exists, and it was like the kids from high school, the kids from college, about all the bands and all that. So that's what I was doing at the time, just going to shows, as many shows as I could, and like I said, mostly metal. I'll give you an example. It's like a lot of like Kill Switch Engage, As I Lay Dying, August Burns Red, very East Coast metalcore, right? And when I went to college, that's when classic rock came in my life, which one of my favorite things. Jazz, blues. I had friends.
Oh, you went into jazz. Okay.
To jazz and blues. What else? Hip hop I was already in. R&B was throughout my whole life also.
Yeah.
So it's always been a mixture of everything.
Yeah. So then when did we start getting into
electronic music? DJing?
Yeah.
So DJing came to me when I was 21. So once I left college, I was like, I'm not doing this.
What were you studying in college, actually?
I had two things I wanted to do. So at first, I wanted to do programming. So I thought I was going to be great at it, and I realized I'm terrible at it. I'm like, I'd rather have something that works already. I don't care about that, So I was terrible. I realized I'm like, I'm not going to do this. So at the time, I had just like a life blocker, at the time. My dad had passed away when I was in high school. My mom was about to need help with my 2 younger brothers. So my decision at that time was I need to either work more or find a career that makes me money so I can help my family.
That makes
so
sense.
I'm like, I'm going to do accounting.
Oh,
I hated it also. I'm like, I can't, this is not for me. So that's when I left school and I went to the military. Did the military. Did a National Guard with the Army. So it's basically part-time. You don't do everything.
Yeah.
When I came back from, so I think that's part of the story. When I went to boot camp and all this, we didn't have music. And I remember for the first 9 weeks of not having music. And when I came, once we were able to have music, that's when I appreciated music in a whole different aspect because everything sounded different, you know?
Oh, interesting.
I was listening to music that I grew up with. Like a big example is the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And I remember hearing songs and thinking, hey, I don't remember that being in this song. But it was just a different environment, different headphones, you know, all these little things. And then not having music for 9 weeks. So that changed me and I realized, oh, I love music. This is the thing that I want to do. I don't care how I do it. I'm going to do my contract. I'm already in it, right? I just left. I just finished boot camp.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. But no plan, nothing like I'm going to do it for a living. It was more, this is going to be my hobby.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do it because I love it. So when I came back home and I was doing my service once a month, I bought little turntables. I bought a little controller, right? I bought this little $200 controller.
Yeah.
One of the first Pioneer. I don't remember which DDJ. I think it was the SB. So the small one. It's a 2-channel one. And I had no clue. I didn't know anything about DJing, right? I had just started going to, had gone to raves when I was in college, but they were more like desert raves.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, I've been to plenty of those. Yeah.
We've done those.
Yeah, we've done those plenty of times. Yeah.
So it was the desert raves, but they were playing like, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it was a lot of another word that we use when in Spanish, but it's psytrance.
Oh, okay.
Psytrance and happy hardcore.
Yeah.
So I went once or 2 or 3 times to these events, but it didn't speak to me. It wasn't like my thing. I'm like, oh, this is cool because everyone's having a great time. You know? Everyone's on something. Everyone's really love. But I don't really want to drive all this distance for this music that it's okay, you know?
Yeah.
So
these were one of your very first events you raised.
And electronic music.
The desert ones were very...
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to that. I think at the time I was going to Phoenix, which is 2 hours away from my hometown. So we would drive 2 hours to Phoenix. And that's like, I saw like Paul Oakenfold, like Green Velvet.
Yeah.
Who else? I don't remember anymore. But a lot of those artists that were going to Phoenix, and I think electronic music was slowly coming into I think in the United States, the mainstream consciousness. Yeah. Slowly there was more festivals being built. And I remember just being at home and just playing for myself. So a lot of people don't know this, but I didn't play for like the first 3 years of my DJing career. Yeah. It wasn't meant for anyone else. It was meant just for me.
Yeah.
I was going to play these songs and I would have my headphones and I would record the mixes and I would just listen to them by myself. I'm like, oh, that's terrible. Nope, delete it. So just practice and practice and practice. Because for me, it's always been, it's not about me. It's never about me. It's more, how can I contribute to the party? How can I help?
Yeah.
Right. But at the time, like I said, I was not planning on doing any of that. It was just for me. And I started hanging out with one of my really good friends from Tucson. His name is Justin Silva. And he was inviting me to his house. It was the first person that I met that invited me to her house to learn how to DJ.
Okay.
So I was going to his house.
Was he more well-established DJ in the scene at the time?
Yeah, I've been playing for longer. He's the person that taught me how to play techno.
Oh, okay.
So he was playing in the scene. He was a part of a couple crews. He had been playing for some time already. He knew the people that were throwing these events. Yeah. Like the desert raves and like the downtown ones. So I remember going to his house and just learning from him. And he's like, all right, you need to do this. So we're just learning. I don't know if we can say, we just smoke weed.
Just you can curse, say whatever you want. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah. All right. So this one time. So we just smoke weed and we just DJ. And at the time, there was this collective in my hometown that were doing events. They're called Dazed and Confused. They're still around. They're now in Seattle.
I think I've heard of them before. Maybe you mentioned them at one
so
point.
I was part of that whole team.
Yeah.
So we were doing they were starting to do those events, and there was like art galleries, you know?
Yeah.
And my friend Justin, he was part of that crew. So when I was hanging out at his house, he invited another friend over, and this guy was part of another collective, right? And they were playing more like bass house and like tech house.
Okay.
House. So when this guy came over, he saw me play, and he had never played before. He was more of a promoter. He was just starting to do events, and he's like, "Hey," he's like, "you should come out and play." And I'm like, "I don't know, I'm still not good enough." And my friend Justin's like, "Yeah, you should do it." Eventually, my friends from the Dazed and Confused group, they went to Vegas, and they're like, "Hey, like you get to play, but you're in charge of the whole night." And we did it at this one venue, which is still there, but
like you were running the whole.
There was only like 4 people, like, because everyone was gone. Everyone went to Vegas, So
I see.
the whole crew that they knew, they're like, "Oh, they're not going to be there, so we're not going to go." But there was usually a lot of people. But I remember playing the gig, and I did it terrible. It was terrible, right?
Were you kind of nervous, like shaking and like, oh fuck?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it was because I had not learned how to properly EQ yet. Like I knew beat matching, I understood that aspect, right? And especially with I was doing Serato with the controller.
Yeah.
At this time, I had already now had Tractor. That's when I first got Tractor.
Oh.
So I understood the beat matching, understood the selection, but it was the EQing.
Okay.
I didn't get it. Like for some reason, my brain
didn't register.
Didn't work. And so one of my friends told me the trick, right?
Yeah.
And once I got that trick with this is one of the best advices I've ever got. Once I got that, I understood. I'm like, okay, that's all it is. I just needed that one key. After that, everything became easier because I had everything else out of the selection and all that, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So I started mixing, I started playing, and then I started getting booked. So I wouldn't even ask, like, because I was working at the time. I had a full-time job working at a fast food restaurant. I was a general manager. I had like 30 employees.
Okay,
so this was not my thing. This is just, I do this
on the side for fun.
Yeah, I'll drink a beer, hang out, just do. But eventually people are just like, "Hey, you should come and play. I'm like, okay. So I started playing more and more and more for years. I did that for 4 years, maybe 4 or 5 years. And that's on top of the 3 years that I'd already been practicing at home.
Yeah.
Eventually, my friend Justin played the radio show where I'm a part of now. It's called Electric Feel. The radio station's called KXCI Tucson. That's on the FM dial 91.3. So it gets broadcasted in the whole Tucson area. I think it's within 50 or 60 miles outside of the city. So you get the city and then...
Oh, nice.
So almost going to Phoenix midway, and almost going to Mexico midway. And I didn't realize that there was a show there. The station I knew about. The station's been there for now 50 years, 45, 50 years.
Oh, wow.
But the show had started, we're now about to hit our 15-year anniversary, I believe. So it had been there for 10 years already. And my friend Justin, he grew up listening to that when he was in high school. He's the one that, like I said, he knew everybody, right?
Yeah.
So he got invited to play as a guest. So the show is on Friday nights, still happening right now from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. And electronic music, whatever you want to play, as long as there's no cursing, no derogatory music,
Yeah. And when we say playing, we're talking about like you're there DJing.
Yeah, so it's one of the few shows. There's only 2 of them that were DJing live.
Okay.
So we're actually, we had either the turntables or the CDJs.
Yeah.
So the cool thing about that show is that you have us talking, but you're also just listening to a mix. So from what I know now is that it's inspired by the P-Tong show, the Essential Mix, right?
Okay.
The 2 hours uninterrupted. So we do an intro in the beginning. Hey, this is this person. You can talk a little bit and say, hey, I'm going to be playing this, or hey, how's your day going, right? Then you have we call them PSAs, which is public service announcements.
Yes.
You do it within 30 minutes at the hour mark, and then at the hour mark, the other person plays. So you switch DJs. Sometimes we would do 2 hours. Like my next one, I think it's next week. It's going to be 2 hours.
Oh, damn.
So we do, at the end of the year, we do it best of 2024.
Yeah.
Right.
That's fun.
So when I went to that show, that's when everything really clicked to me. I'm like, oh, I'm like, this is whole other different world to me of music and DJing. And when I went to that radio station, I met the hosts and the DJs. And I remember them, oh yeah, just come next week. And I'm like, okay. So my friend wasn't playing next week. And I started going every weekend, every Friday. That was that guy, I just show up.
Yeah.
I just show up. And I did that consecutively. I don't think I really missed any days. I think that was my ritual, and just go every Friday. And for me, it was, I'm going to go and steal their music. I'm going to see what they're playing. Because you can go and see in the computer and you're seeing the logs. You're like tracking the tracks live. And these guys have been playing for some of them like 10, 20 years, you know. One of the hosts, his name is Toby Roberts. If you guys don't know, check him out. Amazing. He's my favorite DJ in Arizona.
Okay.
Just great DJ selection and flawless, and an amazing person also. So he's one of the hosts. And I remember seeing him play and just learning, just trying to pay attention to what they were doing, how they were talking. But to me, it wasn't even to be a part of the radio show. It was just, I just wanted to be around the music.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about the radio show is that there's 2 stations for that, for the station. One of them is it's in downtown Tucson, but it's in a house. Right? It's like a house, and that's where they broadcast. There's one antenna there.
Oh, okay.
It's an old firehouse from like 30s or something like that. It's like a 2-story thing.
Yeah.
That's where one of the antennas is. The other one is on the main street, which is Congress Street. And that's where, remember I told you about that theater? There's the Alto Theater. In front of it, there's this historic Hotel Congress, right? This historic building is known for, I think that's where they caught like John Dillinger, right? Back in the day. So it's a thing. Inside of there's this little booth that's where the other radio station's at. But the cool thing about that is that there's a window to the outside and there's speakers outside. So as you're walking by, you get to hear the music.
That's cool.
And that's what I remember liking, that people are just walking by and they're like listening and like, oh wait, there's a radio station. So you get to see us play.
Yeah, you're just watching you guys do your thing.
And the other thing was also, since that hotel was also a club, so at night it became a club. People would be waiting outside trying to get in, and they would be listening to our music.
Oh, that's so cool.
And as you're going in, they think they're about to listen to his music, and they're not. Like, completely different, right? It was like, so that was the cool part of seeing people of like, oh, like I want to be in there. Like, I wanna hang out with them, right? Yeah. Whatever it was. Eventually, one of the hosts, he was going to move to California. Right. And since I was there all the time and he knew I loved techno, he loves techno. He's like, hey, we talked to guys, like, we want you to be the next person. He's like, I'm leaving to California. I want you to take my spot. And I remember like being shocked because just public speaking was always one of my biggest fears, right?
Oh, yeah.
Even in high school, I'm like, even though I can talk a lot, as you can tell, it's always been hard to talk and think out loud in public forums. So I just remember, of course, saying, yeah, definitely, like, I would love to, right? And that's when I really learned how to DJ, because you messed up live. I was recorded them. You recorded them every single time, and when you're live, like, it's a whole different aspect. And when you're in a party, it's a different thing. But when you're in a studio, it's different because you have people listening in the radios. On the internet or wherever the hell they are at. And this you can listen to it online on the internet, so it's broadcasted everywhere, so you can hear it. And that's where I started learning how to, like, and like, if maybe I didn't beat match correctly and my song wasn't gridded properly, let me finesse it, let me adjust my match, or EQ a reverb delay. So, and then I learned also how to find new music, which has always been my lesson for everyone, like how to not play what everyone else is playing. So that was my biggest thing of going to a radio show, because I was starting to play more. I was playing every weekend, twice a weekend, sometimes 3 times. I was getting invited to go to Mexico. I would go to Mexico and play. I was going in Phoenix. There's this festival, I think in their 5th year now in Flagstaff. It's called June Jam.
June Jam, okay.
So a June Jam event was happening. I played the first one. That was my friends throwing that event.
Yeah.
And that was a sister festival to the Gem and Jam festival in Tucson, which is like the mineral show festival. A lot of call it a lot of drum and bass.
Oh, okay.
Liquid drum and bass.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
liquidy music. That's what I call
Yeah.
it. A lot of liquidy music. Very wubby.
Yeah.
The wub. Just very wubby, right?
Yeah.
So that was me just going around playing all this. But all of that for me was just making music. And I had a full-time job that whole time.
Wait. You're doing your managerial job.
Doing manager job. I'm doing the army and I'm doing DJing. And
Yeah.
producing, not really at the time, because I still hadn't found
About that spark of inspiration to open a computer.
I think it was I didn't have the time.
Oh, okay.
And
That's
DJing
fair.
was taking so much time just finding music. That was my thing. Let me find music. Eventually, one of my long relationships ended, and I had so much more time. I remember I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do with myself now?
Yeah.
Not that it was a good or bad thing. It was just that aspect that you're like, all right, now I can allocate. I can go from work to home and just do this one thing. And that's what I did. So I went and bought, I remember I had no money. I got Ableton Live Intro. It's like 20 channels.
Yeah.
No EQ8, just EQ3.
And you stripped down.
Yeah.
Bare bone.
And it was amazing because it was only $100.
Okay.
And I told myself, you're not going to get the next version until you max out. Until you hit more than 20 channels and until you need other stuff. So I did that for about a year, just the Ableton Live Intro. And as I was watching YouTube tutorials, I'm like, why don't I have that plugin? Only I didn't get it. Finally, I found that it was because I wasn't paying enough. So I upgraded to the standard version, which is still not the full version. You don't get max for life, but I think you do get max for life.
But not everything.
Actually, no, yes, you don't get all those samples.
Yeah.
So once I got standard, that's when everything just completely unlocked. I'm like, oh, I was like, I get it now.
Yeah.
So that was my thing. I'm going to produce. Just going to make music. And I was making music.
Sorry, this was Ableton what? Like Ableton
At the time, it was, I started, no, I'm not that old. I started in 9 or 10. I think it was probably,
okay.
I think it was like 9, I think.
Yeah.
When they were doing about to go into 10.
Sorry, how
8
time
years
frame?
ago?
Like 8 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
2000. What? I don't even know, man.
Yeah. 8 years. Okay.
I know it was more than that. It was like, I think it was like 6-7 years ago.
Okay.
And I started doing that because I DJ'd 10 years now, 9 years.
Oh, okay.
So it was like 6 years, 7 years ago. So I think it was then. It must have been Ableton Live 10.
It had to be. At least like just coming out. Yeah.
So I remember just falling in love with Ableton. I know I'm a fanboy, but I remember I'm like, oh my God, it's so easy. Because I tried Logic before that. Someone gave me a cracked version of Logic.
Yeah.
And that wasn't very logical to me, honestly.
No, yeah.
It sounds great.
Yeah.
Great sound engine, but
I've had a lot of people say the same thing. You'll hear it on the show. Ableton just has such a smooth workflow, especially with the genre of music we make.
That's what you use, right?
Yeah. Exclusively.
Exclusively. Yeah. I don't exclusively use Ableton, but it is my main thing.
Yeah.
And I think from there, I was lucky enough to just be in Arizona, and finally, I got asked to come to LA. That's when I moved to LA.
Asked by the radio company?
Not the radio company. So the person that was in LA that I knew him in Arizona because he did events, right? So he invited me to come over to LA. Yeah. He's like, hey, I'm about to record 9 albums.
9 albums?
Yes, he has an independent label that I work with now. It's called Bikini Wax Records. He's like, we're going to record 9 albums. And I need a manager. So I need a production manager. And all my experience up to then was management. I was doing fast food management before that.
Yeah.
I did work at a bank. I did supervising at a bank for 5 years.
I had a wide variety of backgrounds.
Yeah, I was mainly doing that and the management. So he's like, I need a production manager. And I'm like, yeah, that was kind of, yeah.
What does like a production manager do? If you like, give me like a brief job description of what that looks like.
So basically what you do in my job, production management in music for a record label, when you're in the studio, I was the person that made sure that guests had parking. You made sure that if the artist wanted a rare guitar, you find that rare guitar and you rent it. You make sure that everything is in order for them to record.
So you're managing like the setups and everything.
In a way, the setup and the microphones, no. Those are the engineers and the assistant engineers of the studios. Because when you rent a studio, you get the engineer, and then usually have an assistant. So assistant's the runner. He's the person that, I need this cable's not working. He goes and changes it. I was more of the person that made sure that the artist and the guest were comfortable. Made sure that they were recording. Yeah, that's mainly my job. Keep recording. Yeah, like if you broke a string and you didn't bring extra strings, I would figure out a way. If I couldn't do it, send someone else to go to Guitar Center or whatever and get strings.
Interesting.
Or a tuner, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that, and also just I think it's people management. So making sure that people don't get too messed up and they smoke too much or drink too much because then they forgot the song and then you can't record anymore.
Yeah, the whole day is done.
Yeah, so it's about being efficient mainly. Yeah. A lot of it was also, how can I say it? There's a lot of songwriting too, because thankfully I was involved in the production process too and the creativity process.
Oh, that's nice.
So I was sitting down and like I was getting asked for feedback. Hey, what do you think about the song? Oh, well, this, and this. Or, oh, what do you think about the lyric? Should we do something right? I think at the beginning I didn't contribute that much because I didn't have that. I didn't feel like I was good enough. I was sitting in rooms with people that had Grammys,
Damn.
Had people that had multi-platinum records already. Yeah. People that have worked for whoever you call, like, I'm not going to say it, but there's anyone you can think of. Names, they're working big names. So working with these people, I'm very good at production management. Management's always been my thing. I'm very good at telling people what to do. But the whole creativity process, I was still just a DJ and producer making my own music. But that's how I got to LA. And we did record those albums. I think it's 8 or 9 albums. So then my job shifted to operations manager. Now I'm in charge of the catalog, making sure that, how can I say it, that you're getting publicists, that you're sending it to radio stations, that you're just doing a lot of other things. So metadata, getting the songwriting splits, making sure that people are getting paid correctly, making sure that you're, so it's a lot of those things, which what I'm doing right now. That was the question, right? What is it?
I was just curious.
Production manager.
So now, you're pretty much in LA now working, and now you're doing operations. What about, let's talk a little bit about your music career, like you have your own alias, which is under your name, right?
Just Chris Miranda.
And then you have another one.
Yeah. The other project is, it's 2 of us, and that's called Ramleak. Yeah. That's RAMLEAK. Yeah. You can find it on Instagram, Ramleak Music, or everywhere. Yeah. So that's my main project now. I still do my own music. I haven't released as much under me because I've been not just working on the Ramleak project, but sometimes I work on my friends' music. I have some friends that send me their music and I mix it. Yeah. Best mixing engineer, but I'm okay. Yeah. But my main thing is producing. So I've been doing the Ramleak project for, 4 or 5 years.
Since you moved out here?
Right before that. Okay. I was doing it when I was back home. I was very little, but not full time. Yeah. I was more like, I'm going to work on it today. And then 1 week went by. Now I do this almost every day. I touch the music for Ramleak. So and that's just techno.
Yeah. What would you say your sound is if you were to describe someone who is just discovering you?
For my music or my projects?
Your projects. Okay. What would you describe your music as in terms of the techno world?
So for Ramleak, it's all based off of hardware. So we mainly record all hardware, and it's the other person, Ramleak, he has a 303.
Like an original.
He has an original 303. Beautiful condition too. Okay. So he has an original 303. Cool. Only MIDI clock, by the way. No MIDI notes. You have to program it.
I know. Yeah.
People know it's a pain in the butt.
Yeah. I've tried the virtual ones. I was like, God damn, this thing is so hard to use.
Even the virtual one is weird, dude. It just doesn't make sense.
No.
Doesn't make sense. So it's hardware. With that, my synth, I have a bass station 2. Okay. Which I love. I think you have one too, right?
Bass station?
No, you don't have that. That's Posh. Yeah. Shout out to Posh. Yeah. And so that, and then groove boxes. I have my Machine Plus. Sometimes we'll pull out the bass guitar.
Okay.
Some of the sounds that you hear in the music, you're not gonna know what it is, but some of them it's like a guitar, super delayed and just cutting, band passing in with just a tiny bit, and then you affect it, and that's what it is. What else? Of course, the 909 kick, right?
Love it.
Have to have the 909 kick. And for those that are making techno and you don't know, there's a reason why they choose the 909. So if your kick is not coming through, just find yourself a 909 kick and it will punch through.
All right. Yeah, no.
It just works.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it.
Do you find that it's easier to produce when you have hardware, like something to touch and moves and stuff? Or
for me, yes.
Okay.
I didn't get it at first though. I didn't understand because I didn't have the money to get hardware. So I had my laptop and the clicking. So I'm, I can do this. But once I got my first piece of hardware, which was a push one, right?
Push
hardware, but it's digital again.
Yeah. It's like a hybrid.
Yeah, and the pads are kind of clunky.
Yeah.
But it was that whole aspect of automating with the knob.
Yes.
For me, that was a check. How can I move it slowly as I'm recording, like the filter or the wet and dry? So that's the aspect that I like. I don't think it's necessarily it just needs to sound analog. I don't really care about that.
Yeah, you always hear that conversation.
Yeah.
You can only get so far into it before it just sounds like, all right, come on, let's move on.
Well, we're getting really close to stuff sounding really good. And like I have on my iPad, I have the Moog Model 15, which is based off of a modular, like this big old synth.
Yeah.
And it sounds so good.
Really?
Just straight off the iPad, I'm like, wow, sounds really, really good. And just like the whole Arturia stuff.
Yeah, I love Arturia.
I don't own it, but it's amazing. It sounds so good.
What's your favorite, if you can give me one plugin, what would be your favorite synth plugin?
Synth plugin?
Yeah.
I'm a cheater.
Oh?
I'm gonna say Reactor because it has everything. So
Reactor is what exactly?
So Reactor is a plugin that's part of Native Instruments.
Yeah.
And so I have it. So when I bought the complete software, right? The complete 12, I think. So you get a bundle of stuff. Reactor is, how can I say, it's like a DAW almost, but for synthesizers and for sound generation.
Oh, okay.
So you have libraries that you can buy. So you can make your own library. That's the cool thing about it.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, you can just you go in there and you can make your own synth.
Yeah.
They have a lot of digital modular stuff. But for me, they have a bunch of synthesizers and different stuff. They have some emulations of the SH-101, the Roland.
Yeah, I know that one.
The gray little one. Yeah. So they have one of those. They have a bunch of them. So you can buy these plugins, and some companies sound for like nothing.
Ooh.
And they sound so good.
Okay.
But if I was to say one plugin, because that's just a bunch of them, that's like almost cheating.
Really say
you want.
I see.
Honestly, it's going to be probably like Operator. Ableton.
Okay.
Operator, Wavetable.
Really? Wavetable. Yeah, I would go with
Wavetable.
Yeah.
I think mainly because it comes with the program.
Yeah.
And also because I've seen some people make some crazy stuff with it. Some stuff that you wouldn't even know it came. You wouldn't
exactly.
This crazy expensive thing.
That's one thing especially this past year, I've actually started to like focus more on Ableton stuff. And I'm like, these things are really powerful if you know how to use them. You know, I think people just kind of want they just go buy a VST plugin and then they expect to get the sound straight out of it like that. But if you want to sound unique, you need to kind of dive deep. You need to practice, fuck around, and hopefully
find out.
Yeah, exactly. Out of 90% of shit, you get 10% that's actually worth using, and maybe 2% is like really good.
Yeah, there's this famous DJ that I got to meet throughout my career, and he told it to me like straight up. And I think once that clicked, which is what you just said, everything changed. Which is 90% of it is editing. We think that, oh yeah, I'm gonna come up with this melody. Like, no, it's mainly you're gonna be editing. It's mainly going in and cutting the arrangement, or I need to EQ now, I need to compress. Yeah. So it's going back to the synth thing. I think for me, going back now, if I was to start all over again, it would just be all stock, if I could. Yep. Which I do a lot now, but I would definitely tell people that if you're feeling blocked because you're not moving forward with what you have, just get one. Just get one drum machine or one synth. Just get one, and don't buy something that's $500. Tell people get like the Korg Volca basses or the Volca keys.
Yeah.
Or the Beats, I think, which is a drum machine. They're like $100.
Yeah.
Battery powered.
They're so fun to use. Yeah, they're so fun to use, dude. There's a place called Plug-in Alliance. No, Plug-in Alliance. Sorry, Perfect Circuit.
Yeah. Oh, Burbank. Crazy.
It's so fun. It is like a producer's candy land, dude. It's so much fun.
But you don't go there for the Volca basses or the Korgs. You go for the
you go for
big boys.
Yeah. But that's where I kind of got to like play around with it. And it's just something, like you said, tactile fun.
What did you do? Do you have any sense?
I have a sub 37. Yeah. Yeah.
So I have the Bass Station 2, which is my baby. And that's basically the less expensive version of the sub 37.
Okay.
Nah, which I love.
I feel like everyone kind of has their one, first synth, or like their baby synth that you're never going to let it go.
Nah.
No matter what happens, that thing is going to stay with me and they're going to bury me with it.
And I think that's a trick though. I think that's the one thing that that's been helping me a lot. Whenever I buy gear, I'm going to learn this one piece of gear.
Yeah.
I'm not going to, that's what I did with Ableton. Like I said, I got intro.
Yeah.
So with the synth also, I said I'm going to buy one synth. Mine's a mono synth.
Yeah. I
don't need another 3 of these versions.
Yeah, I think honestly that's something that a lot of new producers these days are falling into the trap of excess.
Yeah,
especially like Black Friday just came along. Freebies for everyone. I've made it a point this year not to buy anything.
Yeah,
nothing.
I didn't buy anything either.
Yeah,
I almost did.
Yeah,
I almost bought. Because there's this company that's going out of business, and they were giving the whole catalog, and there was a bunch of contact instruments, which is another software of native instruments.
Yeah.
And I remember, I was like, I'm gonna buy it. It's like $10. And then I'm like 50 gigs. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I have a bunch of stuff. I just got from work. If you guys don't know about the OB1, which is Oberheim.
Oh, I love that. They sound so good.
So I got the OB1 and I've been messing
with you got one?
No, just the VST.
Oh, okay. But still,
but it sounds so good.
It does. That's the thing at Perfect Circuit. I got to play with it. Oh my
God. Probably. Or X.
Yeah, because I used to have a Prophet, was it 6 or 12?
The 6.
The 6, I think.
Probably, right?
You know what? I kind of regret ever selling it. I regret selling it, but you know what? I was in a point where I was kind of like, I need to let go and to stick with one thing, like you said. And then I realized this, I think it was just in my room, and I realized why is it taking so long to produce? And then I kind of started thinking, I was like, I'm spending a majority of my time going through different plugins and different VSTs, different sound banks, different this, just to find a sound, and I'm not putting any effort towards. Right. And that's when I realized I need to cut back. I need to strip it down, and giving myself too many options actually was hurting my music.
Yeah. I think it's a thing that you don't learn until much later.
Yeah.
I think for me, the way that I learned synthesis, which is once I got a synth, I'm like, oh, I need to learn synthesis now, right? For me, it was having a mono synth, which is great. So I don't have 12 voices. I just have one.
Is it one oscillator?
This is a 2 oscillator.
2 oscillators.
So it's technically paraphonic.
Yeah. But it does additive synthesis, right? You're building 2 sounds together.
You have 2 oscillators, so you can mix the 2 oscillators to get the one sound. But it's mono because you don't have the stereo.
Oh, it's the mono.
Okay. Right?
Actually, that's exactly like my sub 37. It's
yours is mono too. Yeah.
It's they say it's paraphonic, but really,
if you press the keys, you can press two keys.
But you only get one mono channel.
Yeah.
And
I think for me, like I said, that one person that's just been doing it forever, he told me, he's like, stick to a mono. He's like, stick to a mono because you can fit more. When you make it polyphonic, you're adding voices, so the spectrum just...
Yeah, and the stereo is probably such a pain in the ass to deal with sometimes if you don't know what you're doing.
Exactly. So I got the mono synth, and what I learned was put it to the initial patch. So whatever the initial patch, if it's just a saw or a saw wave or a square wave, whatever it is, build your sounds from nothing. Like the presets are cool when you are trying to get inspired. And, maybe something will come up. But otherwise, I would advise people just start with the 0 patch.
Yeah.
The initial patch, build this. And that's how you learn the synth. Like, oh, this is what an envelope is, or this is what the ADSR, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that's helped me the most. Just cut it down to basics. I think do I still have it? I don't think I have it on my phone anymore.
Yeah.
I had a background that said, basically it was a quote that says, let me remember, probably going to butcher it now.
I just have that. Yeah. There you go.
Probably going to butcher it, but it was, it's basically saying you have everything that you need. Nothing else is needed.
Yeah.
And I think just if you have a laptop, that's,
yeah. I mean, like you'll see right now when we go upstairs is like all I have is a sub 37. I have the push 2.
all I have is a smooth sub 37. No, I get it though. It's just one.
Just one. And then I have an Eventide space reverb. Those two combinations, dude, oh my God. It's like Interstellar.
Yeah, exactly.
And then my push 2, which actually I've been using as like a drum machine almost. And there you go. I have my little corner of like fucking around and finding out.
Yeah, and I think that's, so I have my bass station. I have my push 2, which is basically the brains for me. So it's right in front of my keyboard.
Yeah.
I use that more for mixing. I don't use that for the drum machine.
Okay.
I use it for mixing. Just the levels.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
The faders.
Yeah.
I don't use it as much anymore to add the plugins because just Command F on Ableton. Fast.
I love it. Yeah.
But I like it for the automation to be able to like, move the filters and all that.
Yeah.
And just a tactile feeling. But my other thing that I have is my Machine Plus.
We talked about this before. You got me so interested in it. I'm like, all right, let's put some money to the side for that.
Definitely recommend it. Standalone. So I have it connected where I can just, if I don't want to work on my computer or on my desk, I can just disconnect it, go on the couch, just
That's
bust
so
it out.
fun. Yeah.
Just connect your headphones. I think the Push 3 is a thing, but it's not the same.
Yeah. I think they just kind of, it's just known for it. It's just known to be disconnected from a computer.
And that's what I like about the Machine, that it's basically an MPC. It's the same format. So you have the 16 pads, but you can also connect your USB. So you can connect your samples to it, right?
Oh, that's nice.
So that's what I do. I get USB to sample. It also has an SD card. So I have like, I think half a terabyte SD card. You can go up to a terabyte. So I have all the sound banks, and that's what I use to, whenever I'm on Ableton, this is my main thing to create sound. So I'm like, okay, how can I use this? And then my latest edition, I told you, it's my 88 key hammer.
Yeah.
My M Audio hammer action, because I'm learning piano now, taking classes. So that's, I think, essentially what I produce with. Yeah. And of course the microphone, but.
Yeah, no, and one thing actually, like I've noticed in some of your songs, you guys record your own vocals, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. So like that alone, vocals is such a pain in the ass, dude. Like
still struggle with them.
Yeah. Cause okay, like vocals is its own thing. Mixing is its own thing. Mastering is its own thing. And you do it all.
I don't do the mastering.
No. Okay.
No. Okay. And the mixing, so I'll give you an example. For the Ramlake stuff, I would do a production.
Yeah.
And I mix it as well as I can.
Okay.
I do the best that I can.
Yeah.
And then we hand it off to someone, and then he finishes the mix.
Yeah.
And then mastering, it depends. At the beginning, we were going to like KXCI, which is in Berlin. Maybe you guys don't know KXCI, check them out. Have some of the best masters. And then
writing a real quick.
Yeah, definitely. And just really good quality.
Yeah.
But now I think with how just technology is getting better, like people are able to master now at home, and it's getting much better. I
mean, someone told me, I think Thomas Schumacher told me, like Ozone 11.
Yeah, so he was telling us,
like
right?
Unbelievable. It gets you 90% of the way there. And I'm like,
couldn't believe it.
And dude, but it was Black Friday, and I saw it on sale. I was like, no, again, no, not yet.
Not yet. Yeah. I would advise people, if you have the money, pay for the mastering.
Yeah.
And get stuff for not that expensive. Like even like some of the best masterings are like $80-$90. If you have $80-$90,
yeah,
it's worth it.
Yeah.
But there's people that do like $20.
Yeah. And because I started to send my tracks out, who you go to mix it and who you go to master, big difference. And I didn't realize it because I used to go to one guy.
Okay.
I was like, okay, this sounds
For
good.
mixing or
Both mixing and mastering.
was he doing both of them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But then I was like, okay, like it sounds good. But then I didn't realize when I sent it to someone else to see, and I paid a little bit more. I think I paid $90 for it.
Yeah.
Oh Lord, that sounded so different. Because I went the cheap route. I wanted it cheap because I want to save money. But then I didn't realize how much quality is lost when you do that. I mean, it's always good to support the little guy who's starting off, especially if you're starting off. You don't need to go to big production.
Yes, support everyone.
Yeah. But if you're at a point in your career, I think when you're like, all right, we're reaching professional stage quality, you need to spend the extra cash. And when I did that, I was like, wow.
It's worth it.
It is 100% worth it.
And I think it's part of the also hanging around with like Thomas Schumacher and and these people that are in a different level already.
Yeah.
And then you start learning that like they're not overthinking it. They're using ozone 11, you know? Like,
Yeah.
And that's when you realize that also for the people, if you're releasing music or you haven't released music, sometimes the labels are going to get it mastered again.
Yeah.
So
that is true.
don't think about it too much. They care more about the production and the mixing. Focus on the mixing.
Yeah.
A lot of people want to do songwriting, production, mixing, mastering, DJing, everything. So that's not how it works.
Yeah.
You can. There's some people that are very good and they're rare.
No.
But I would tell people focus on mixing.
Yeah.
Focus on your EQs, your compression, your levels.
Yeah.
And then if later on you do get a room or some really cool headphones, try mastering.
Yeah.
But otherwise, just pay someone, you know.
And I think the biggest thing that my biggest advice is keep it simple.
Yeah, that's hard.
No, trust me. I've had Victor Ruiz, I've had Thomas Schumacher and Umek all say, keep it simple. That's been my like thing. And going into 2025, I remember I mentored with Victor and he showed me one of his tracks that I loved. I think it's called Wander.
Okay, yeah.
I think it was that track. 14 channels.
Yeah.
Just 14. And I'm like, this piece of art that I fell in love with, in my brain, I was like, oh, there has to be like layers. There has to be this. Like, no, just 14 channels, you know, kick, bass, a few drums, a few synths.
That's all it is.
And a few effects, and that's it.
And I think it's one thing that I think at least, I'm not going to say everyone. In my opinion, I didn't understand space. I didn't get space. I'm like, I need to fill all this up.
Yeah.
And there has to be something happening every 16 bars or removing something. But then you end up sometimes with so many layers and you end up with 30 channels and it's all just taking space in the frequency spectrum.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really add to it. So the biggest thing that I learned was, as my good friend Corbin says, exercise the mute button. So just touch the mute button. Just turn it off. Does it add? Oh no, it doesn't. Okay, just get rid of it. Just delete it. You can save it if you want to. I just delete it. I just commit now.
Yeah.
Like whatever, I don't need it.
Man, you're getting me the itch to go produce right now.
We might end up with a song after this.
Yeah.
But yeah, the mute button is your best friend. Just go through the line. I think that's the one thing that as you know, I'm very fond of Detroit music.
Yeah.
That's mainly going back to a question like Ramley is hardware.
Yeah.
My personal music when I make going back, that music is tell people it's techno and its hardware is very warehousey, very like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. things, right? Very, how can I say, very heavy on bass, but like centered and
grounded
and precise.
Yeah.
It's sometimes it seems like it's crazy, but it's controlled, right?
Yeah.
And you said we do our own vocals, samples too, a lot of sampling. But for my personal music, when I started DJing, it was a lot of I like deep house. I like deep tech.
Okay.
I like house and techno. Techno came right after house.
Yeah.
So when I play like if I'm playing on the radio, that's my main thing. So if you hear me play on the radio, that's how I play.
Yeah.
Which is either starting house, ending up in techno, or going techno and playing some house. And finding my way back to techno. Or I think it's more about the story. So it's not about playing 145 and this is my music. It's more, for me, it's like, let me start at 124.
Yeah.
And I end up at 135.
It's a journey.
Yeah, it's a journey.
Yeah.
So for me, my biggest inspiration when I started DJing, which is something I did want to talk about today.
Yeah.
It's about learning the history of what you're playing. So that was my biggest thing always throughout this whole throughout my whole life was, okay, I'm gonna listen to techno, and I love playing techno, but where did it come from, right?
Yeah.
And then once you find that, you find out labels, and that's how I started the process of just digging deeper.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing I've noticed with this new wave of ravers coming into the underground scene is not a lot of them really know the history, why it started, where it started. You know, people think, I've had a couple of interactions where people think techno started in Europe because it's so big there. No,
Germany.
It's founded in Detroit.
Yeah, I think Germany should get props.
Oh, for sure.
Because they're the ones that propagated. They're the ones that brought Detroit techno artists when it wasn't anything in the US.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it's not about being a snob of like, oh, like Detroit techno and Chicago house and all that. It's more, if you know where the music came from, you can, like I said, find a label. And then once you find that label, all these artists that you probably never heard before. So that's how I found all my music. Like, I'll give you guys an example. One of the first times I came to LA, I got to see one of my favorite DJs. His name is Carl Craig, right? I think he's from the second generation of Detroit techno, or third. And yeah, Detroit. He has a label called Planet E Communications. So I remember seeing him in LA and seeing him play, and that's when everything changed for me. I'm like, oh, I was like, that's what DJing is. So I looked, and I had just bought a CD of his before all of this. So once I started learning about, like I said, the roots of the music that I love, I did it with Chicago house too. I did it with German techno also, because I work with some German techno artists. I started learning everything that I could. I'm like, what about this? What about this? Right? And the Detroit stuff, of course, the underground resistance,
just open a whole new world. It's just domino effect, one after the other.
Yeah. So when you hear me play, it's gonna be mostly just techno or house.
And that's what I've noticed about when you play your sets. Sometimes I have no idea where you get these tracks from. Like back in my head, I'm like, bro, like where's he finding this stuff? That's a cool thing, you know. I
have a system. So I do have a system.
And I think that's one thing people need to do is like getting organized, especially once you start getting to a point where like you're at, like you're constantly like playing gigs, you're producing a lot. You have to get to a point. It's like, all right, I need to add some structure. I can't just be twiddling and fucking around and, you know, wasting time.
Yeah. And I was talking to someone, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, and this person plays a lot out in LA, and he's like, hey, like I need new music. And I'm like, well, have you ever sat down to find new music? He's like, yeah. He's like, but it's hard because like, I think maybe it's just that whole like top 100, right? I think that's what he was getting at. Like
a lot of things get pushed up, and it's hard to find the small guys.
Yeah. So I was giving him my process, and I'll tell you, it's not complicated. It's a lot of different things, and it's not all completely organized.
Yeah.
But one of the things is I switched from Spotify to YouTube. So if you just share your Wrapped, I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm on YouTube now. But with YouTube, what I do, or just one of the biggest things, different algorithm. If people don't know, you can find more music, more deep cuts, because they have bootlegs and everything on YouTube. If you don't know that, you can find all these tracks or mixes that you can't find on Spotify. So YouTube Music has everything that YouTube has.
Okay. Because I would use SoundCloud to find bootlegs.
SoundCloud is great too. I love SoundCloud. You can find a lot of good stuff on SoundCloud.
Yeah. But YouTube is your bread and butter.
YouTube's cool because if you have an artist, right? Like we said, Victor Ruiz, if you open the radio, right? You create the radio, you have a option to choose a variety. Do you want stuff that's about that you already been listening to, the algorithm knows, or do you want a little bit of a mix of what you know, what you don't know, or do you just want deep cuts? So it lets you choose, like,
that's really cool.
I want deep cuts, or I want familiar music. I want something that's more, what can I say, like more popular, but it's still in the same genre. So what I do is I go to a gym, or wherever I'm doing driving. I drive a lot. I'm traveling and stuff. So what I do is I just add them to a library. I add them to my, I call it must buy or must find playlist. So I think right now it's probably like 150 because I already found some of them. So that's one way. That's the easiest way, I think, for people. You do Spotify, you can do Spotify, Tidal, whatever it is. But the radio part of the software program. The software is amazing.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
just starts throwing different things. The other big thing, SoundCloud, of course. Think in the DJ community, people always send links, right?
Yeah.
You might link like, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
Because I like that you can download it. I like the aspect like, here's my song. If you like it, like, here's a free download.
Yeah.
You can buy it too. Bandcamp rarely. Bandcamp is more for records, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But my biggest thing that I'm gonna tell you, because there's a lot of other ways I do, Discogs.
I know
Discogs.com, right?
Yeah.
So I started with Discogs because I started buying records. I started. I'm not gonna say I'm a vinyl DJ because I'm not, but I'm getting there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But you still have to have records. So I started buying a bunch of records, and someone told me, "Oh, you can use Discogs as a library, so you can categorize your records. You can put them in there, and it tells you how much it costs, the median average, the total, and it's also good for your insurance, by the way, home insurance. If you don't know,
Really?
yeah, it keeps track of all your records.
Oh, that's
so you
true.
can show them, hey,
yeah,
my collection's worth about $9,000 or $500, whatever it is.
I like that. All right.
So what I started doing was, if I found an artist that I like, right, whoever the hell it was, Discogs is in my opinion, I might be wrong. I don't know if you want to check it or not, but has the most complete database of any music for music.
Oh,
like
really?
Yeah, because you can go in there and go to artist,
Yeah.
and it should have almost all his catalog.
Oh, okay.
So you can sort it by new or old.
And you go old.
So what I do is old.
Yeah.
I start from the old, start from the beginning. And slowly I just, there's different websites where you can build a playlist. But what I do, I just go to one record, click on it. The cool thing about Discogs is that most of the time it's linked to YouTube in that page. So it doesn't take you to YouTube. Right then and there, you can click and it has a YouTube video and you can just listen to a song.
Oh, that's so nice.
Most of them have the YouTube link right there.
Yeah.
So I just listen. I'm like, okay, this is cool. I'm like, I would like to get that record, add it to my want list or wish list. But then I also add that to my Beatport.
Oh, okay. So you can get the digital version. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, this song I like. So I just add it on my card on Beatport. And then once I'm done with the artist, then I go through the labels of what he released. So I go through that first label.
Yeah, you go in
and then
you
go to
just
that label.
fall down that rabbit hole, and then next thing you know, you're somewhere completely different.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other big one that I just recently learned, and I definitely advise people, is find your artist that you like.
Yeah.
Go to your record box or a tractor library. Find the artist that you like. Go on Discogs and check what genre they're under. Sometimes you'll find some weird genres that you had no clue about. Like I just, not just, but it was like 5 years ago, I found out about dub techno.
Yeah, yeah.
Didn't really know what dub techno was. And I found one of the artists that I really like. Ended up finding out that he's one of the founders of dub techno.
Oh, wow.
This is Moritz van Oswald. He's part of a Basic channel, right? And once I found that, I'm like, wow. Like, so I learned about the genre thing. And now you deep dive into the genre.
Yeah.
And you end up finding out some stuff that is amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, that's, by the way, Discogs.
Well, thank you for that, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, we're almost done here, but at least to kind of wrap things up, is there any events or anything to look forward to that, just to let people know that
right now, well, we're about to hit Christmas, so I think I usually don't do anything around December.
Any new
and in January is weird. I'm not yet.
Okay.
I have some stuff right now. So for the past couple years, I've just been sitting on music. I just have a bunch of music so for Ramleak, we have music coming out almost every 8 weeks or 9 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So we do have a release that's going to be coming out in January.
Okay.
And I'm excited for that. It should be cool.
Okay.
So you can check that. That's out everywhere. I mainly ask people to go to YouTube, but it's available everywhere. If you DM me or whatever, I can send you a link.
Okay.
No problem. Or that's to anyone that's listening. But so I have that. The radio, of course, I perform next week, I believe.
Yeah.
And then
that's that's routine.
Yeah,
people can check you.
That's at least twice a month. One to twice a month. Yeah.
And what was the radio channel called?
That's KXCI Tucson.
KXCI Tucson.
The page, you can find it at Electric Field DJs.
Okay.
And the show's called Electric Feel,
Yeah.
like MGMT.
Yeah.
So yeah, mainly doing that, and yeah, there's gonna be a bunch of releases coming out in beginning of the year. I have something slotted right now, but I'm waiting for that email. Like, yeah, we'll release it. We don't need to get it mastered again.
Okay.
Have that. I also have some mixes coming up that I've been. I'm gonna be guests for some friends. Besides the podcast, but I'm going more towards that right now.
Okay.
Like the gigs and stuff, I definitely be playing more.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for the people to reply.
All right,
on some of them, you know.
Well, thank you for coming on, bud. I appreciate having you.
Yeah,
and hopefully when we bring you back on in a year, we'll have some more stuff to talk about.
Definitely.
Cool. Thank you, sir.
Of course.